Chapter 1. A Little Boy's Prayer. I've lived long enough to know I don't have all the answers. In fact, the older I get, the more I realize how much I still have to learn. My mother, Lou, used to tell me, "You can learn something new every day." She was right. If you've picked up this book hoping to read the story of a man who has everything figured out, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I'm still learning. I've made mistakes. I've been hurt. I've hurt people I love. I've asked for forgiveness. And I've had to learn how to forgive others. This is simply my story. Maybe somewhere in these pages you'll recognize a little of your own. My earliest memories aren't of pain, they're of love. We lived just outside the city in a small country neighborhood. It wasn't a big place or a fancy place, but to a little boy it felt like the whole world. I can still remember the smell of fresh country air mixing with the wonderful smell of Mom's cooking drifting through the house. I can still picture the backyard where we spent countless hours laughing, running, and playing until the sun began to disappear. Life seemed simple. Looking back, maybe it really was. One of the happiest memories of my childhood arrived on my 4th birthday. My parents gave me a German Shepherd puppy. His name was Shane. Although he had been given to me, none of us thought of Shane as belonging to just one person. He belonged to all of us. He chased us through the yard, played with us until he was exhausted, and loved every member of our family without choosing favorites. Looking back now, I realize Shane represented something much bigger than a family pet. He represented home. There were 6 children in our family: Quinn Jr., Dean, Randall, Luann, me, and my little brother Wesley. There was quite a difference in our ages. Quinn Jr. was 11 years older than I was and 12 years older than Wesley. Yet my older brothers never treated us like we were just little kids getting in the way. Instead, they invited us into their lives. They taught us how to throw footballs, catch baseballs, and shoot basketballs. Some of my happiest memories were simply being outside together. They also introduced me to something that became a lifelong passion: the Kansas City Chiefs. It was 1967. I was only 4 years old. Whenever the Chiefs came on television, I was glued to the screen. I didn't understand every rule, but I understood excitement. If my brothers were cheering, I was cheering. If they jumped off the couch, so did I. That little 4-year-old boy is still a Chiefs fan today. Sports weren't the only thing our family loved. Music filled our home. Every one of my brothers loved music. My sister loved music. Mom loved music. Dad loved music too. Music wasn't just something playing in the background. It was part of who we were. Sometimes we'd all gather downstairs in the basement around the record player. We'd listen to songs like This Magic Moment and the rock music of the late 1960s. We'd sing together, dance together, laugh together, and enjoy being a family. No one was trying to perform. No one cared if they could sing perfectly. We were simply enjoying being together. Dad usually preferred country music. He played guitar beautifully and had a wonderful singing voice. Every now and then he'd come downstairs and join us. Before long he'd be dancing with the rest of us, smiling as we all laughed together. Those moments became treasures I didn't realize I was collecting. Then there was something else that quietly became part of my life: prayer. When I was about 5 years old, I started praying every night before I went to sleep. No one taught me how. At least I don't remember anyone teaching me. We didn't regularly attend church, and I didn't know there were certain ways people were supposed to pray. Wesley and I slept in the same bed. Each night I'd pull the blankets up over my head and quietly talk to the Lord. Wesley would lie beside me and listen. I prayed for Dad. I prayed for Mom. I prayed for Quinn Jr., Dean, Randall, Luann, and Wesley. I simply asked the Lord to watch over the people I loved.
Then, somewhere around 7 or 8 years old, something changed. One night while I was praying beneath those blankets, I suddenly felt like I was leaving people out. I don't know where that thought came from. I only remember thinking it seemed selfish to pray only for my own family. So I changed my prayer. From that night on, I always ended the same way. Please take care of everyone in the world, Lord. Please help them all. I wasn't trying to be religious. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was simply a little boy talking to the Lord. Looking back more than 60 years later, I still can't explain why those prayers began. I only know they became part of who I was. Back then, I believed tomorrow would always look like today. I believed Shane would always be waiting in the backyard. I believed my brothers and sister would always be there.
When I think back to my childhood, I don't first remember houses or neighborhoods. I remember people. I remember a family of 8 living life one ordinary day at a time. My dad, Quinn, my mom, Lou, my oldest brother, Quinn Jr., then Dean, then Randall, my sister, Luann, me, and finally my little brother, Wesley. 6 kids. Looking back now, I smile because we probably didn't realize how rich we really were. Not rich in money, rich in people. We had each other. As brothers and sister, we argued sometimes, laughed a lot, and found ways to entertain ourselves that probably wouldn't make much sense to kids growing up today. Back then, the greatest adventures didn't require batteries or screens. All they required was imagination. I was too young to understand that every family has its own personality. I only knew ours. Dad had a quiet steadiness about him that I appreciated more as I grew older. He wasn't the loudest man in the room, but he had a way of making things feel stable. Mom was different. She had dreams, determination, and a drive that pushed her forward. As a little boy, I didn't think of those things as strengths or weaknesses. She was simply Mom. Children don't spend much time analyzing their parents. They simply love them. When you're 5 or 6 years old, you don't think about tomorrow changing. You assume birthdays will keep coming. Christmases will keep looking the same, and everyone you love will always be there. At that age, forever doesn't seem like a very long time. It simply feels normal. Looking back, I realized those ordinary days became some of the greatest treasures of my life. We never know which moments will become memories. We don't know that one ordinary supper around the table may someday be something we'd gladly relive if we could. As the years have passed, I've learned not to take ordinary days for granted. Sometimes the most ordinary moments become the ones we miss the most. One thing I especially remember is how much I loved my brothers and my sister. Like most siblings, we weren't perfect. We annoyed each other. We competed. We got into trouble together. But underneath all of that was something deeper. We belonged to each other. That feeling stayed with me for many years. Even now, after all that life has brought, I can still close my eyes and picture all 6 of us together. Time has a way of changing every family. Some chapters are filled with laughter. Some are filled with tears. As I write these words, 2 of my brothers, Dean and Wesley, are no longer here. There are moments
when I still miss them so deeply that it's difficult to describe. Grief has a way of reminding us just how much we loved someone. If love leaves scars, then perhaps those scars are proof that what we had was real. When I was a little boy, though, I didn't know anything about grief. I didn't know families could be divided. I didn't know hearts could be broken. I simply believed tomorrow would look a lot like today. I was about to learn that life doesn't always ask our permission before it changes. And neither do the people we love.
The day forever changed. There are days you remember because they were wonderful. There are other days you remember because life was never the same afterward. I was only 5 years old. I didn't understand marriages. I didn't understand adult struggles. I only knew something felt wrong. I remember my parents arguing. Even after all these years, that memory still hurts. I don't remember every word. I don't need to. I remember how it felt. It felt as though something precious was breaking. Not long afterward, my parents separated. Then our families separated too. My older brothers, Quinn Jr., Dean, and Randall, went to live with Dad. Shane went with them. I don't think I fully understood losing my dog until he was gone. One more familiar piece of home had disappeared. Luann, Wesley, and I stayed with Mom. For a while we moved from place to place until Mom remarried. Eventually we settled into another house. My stepfather entered our lives. As a little boy, I wanted another adult who cared about us. Instead, life became much more difficult. He wanted to replace our father. Wesley and I often paid the price. He would pull our hair, slap us on the back of the head with an open hand, and call us cruel names that no child should hear. Home no longer felt as safe as it once had. The hardest part wasn't even what he did to Wesley or me. It was watching the way he treated Luann. Even as a little boy, I knew something wasn't right. Out of love and respect for my sister, I'll let most of that story remain hers to tell. What I will say is this: every child deserves to grow up feeling safe. Not every child does. Through all of those changes, one thing never changed. Every night I still pulled the blankets over my head. Wesley lay beside me listening. And I still talked to the Lord. I prayed for Dad. I prayed for Mom. I prayed for my brothers. I prayed for Luann. I prayed for Wesley. And I ended every prayer exactly the same way. Please take care of everyone in the world, Lord. Please help them all. Looking back today, I realized those prayers weren't changing the circumstances around me. They were slowly changing me. I didn't know it then, but the Lord was beginning a lifetime of teaching me something I would spend decades trying to understand. Love is easy when life is easy. Love is proven when life isn't. And sometimes the deepest scars become the places where grace quietly begins to grow. There comes a point when fear changes. For years, fear had meant staying quiet. It meant watching someone's mood before deciding whether it was safe to speak. It meant knowing that a grown man could enter a room and change the atmosphere simply by walking through the door. It meant learning things children should never have to learn. How to recognize anger in someone's footsteps. How to judge the tone of a voice. How to prepare yourself for what might happen next. My younger brother Wesley and I had lived with that long enough. I was 12 years old when something inside me finally said, enough. I don't remember waking up that morning knowing my life was about to change. Most turning points probably aren't like that. They don't announce themselves. They arrive disguised as another ordinary morning. My stepfather came into the room, Wesley, and I shared. He was angry. He had come to confront us, and from experience we knew where confrontations with him could lead. But this time was different. This time I didn't back away. I picked up something to defend myself and stood my ground. I told him he wasn't going to do this anymore. I wasn't a grown man, I wasn't even close. I was 12. But standing behind me was my little brother Wesley, holding something of his own and making it clear without saying much that he felt exactly the same way. Two boys who had spent years being afraid had finally decided we weren't going to be afraid anymore. My stepfather looked at us. He was a full-grown man. We were children. And yet, for the first time, he stepped backward. He didn't hit us. He didn't charge toward us. He retreated. Then he went to tell our mother what we had done. Looking back all these years later, I don't celebrate the fact that two children felt they needed weapons to feel safe in their own home. There is nothing heroic about children being forced into that position. But I understand those two boys. We weren't looking for a fight. We were trying to make one thing clear. You are not gonna hurt us anymore. And he never did. He never touched Wesley or me again. But the peace didn't last. Within the next couple of days, another argument erupted between my mother and stepfather. This time it became physical. He had my mother pinned on the bed, his hands around her throat. Wesley saw what was happening. My little brother didn't run. He confronted him. My stepfather released my mother, stood up and turned toward Wesley. Now, he was coming after him. But somewhere in the middle of that chaos, I had done the one thing I knew would bring help. I called my oldest brother, Quinn Jr. There are phone calls people receive that don't require much explanation. This was one of them. Quinn didn't hesitate. He came immediately. Our oldest brother arrived quickly to protect our mother and us. And that was the end. Not merely the end of another argument, the end of the marriage.
My mother had misjudged a man she had trusted, and all of us had paid a price for it. But I don't tell this story to condemn her. Life looks much easier when you're standing decades away from the decisions someone else had to make. My mother was human. We all are. Now my stepfather was gone. One of the things age has taught me is that understanding someone's mistakes doesn't mean pretending the damage didn't happen. It happened, and it changed us. The next few years of my life are harder to organize in my memory. They seem almost like photographs thrown into a box. Moments, faces, arguments, laughter, trouble, music, anger, and growing up. But not always in neat chronological order. I became rebellious. So did Wesley. Maybe rebellion was our way of taking back some control. When you spend part of your childhood feeling powerless, freedom can become intoxicating when you finally get a taste of it. Sometimes you don't know what to do with it. I certainly didn't. I made mistakes, plenty of them. And although it would be easy to blame every bad decision I made afterward on what happened in that house, that wouldn't be honest either. Eventually, my choices became my choices. That's part of growing up too. My mother eventually remarried. Maybe she was still searching for the stability that had disappeared from our family years earlier. Maybe she simply wanted someone beside her. Whatever the reasons, once again, the man she chose wasn't the man she believed him to be. That marriage wouldn't last either.
This time, much of the conflict centered around Wesley. The man could be abusive toward my younger brother, and watching that happen stirred up feelings in me that were already painfully familiar. By then, I wasn't 12 anymore. I was getting older. At 16, I went to work. And through one of those strange circumstances life sometimes creates, I ended up working at the same place my stepfather worked. He was my boss. I worked in the warehouse. I was 16 years old, trying to earn money and beginning to discover what it meant to work alongside grown men. I listened more than people probably realized. When you're the 16-year-old in a warehouse full of adults, sometimes they forget you're there. One day that happened. I walked into an area where my stepfather was talking. He didn't know I was standing there, so he kept talking. I listened. At first, it was simply another story being told among men. Then I realized what he was talking about. A woman, and not my mother. The longer he talked, the clearer it became. He was describing being unfaithful to her. I stood there listening to my own mother's husband talk about betraying her, apparently unaware that her 16-year-old son could hear every word. I wish I could say I calmly considered all the consequences of what I was about to do. I didn't. There was no way I could carry that information home and look my mother in the eye, while pretending I hadn't heard it. She deserved to know, so I told her. And that marriage ended too. Another man gone. Another chapter of our family closed. Another scar. For a long time, it seemed as though our lives followed a pattern of building something, watching it crack, and then trying to build again from whatever pieces remained. But something else had been happening inside me. The little boy who once hid beneath the covers and prayed for everyone in the world was growing up. He was becoming harder, more rebellious, more suspicious, and much less willing to let someone push him around. Yet somewhere underneath all of that anger and independence, the boy who prayed was still there. I didn't always behave like him. Sometimes I barely recognized him, but I never completely lost him. Looking back, I realized that scars don't appear only where something wounded you. Sometimes, a scar marks the place where you finally healed enough to stand. At 12 years old, with Wesley behind me, I stood. At 16, when silence would have been easier, I spoke. Neither moment made me a man. I still had a lot of growing up to do. A lot of mistakes to make. A lot of love to find. And unfortunately, a lot more scars to collect. But childhood was slipping away. And the next part of my life was already waiting for me. I still prayed. I still prayed.
Chapter 5. Growing up before I was ready. By the time I reached my teenage years, life had already taught me lessons I probably should not have learned so young. I had seen marriages fall apart. I had seen anger become violence. I had stood between people I loved and people who wanted to hurt them. Maybe that was why I wasn't in any hurry to grow up. I had started dating girls, but I didn't want anything serious. I was young. And as far as I was concerned, there was plenty of time for responsibility and marriage later. Then there was Tammy. She lived down the street and had made it obvious she was interested in me. But she was 3 years younger. And at that age, 3 years seemed like a lifetime. I thought she was simply too young. When I was 16, she called one day and invited me over to eat and swim in her family's pool. When I saw her, something had changed. She had grown up quite a bit, and for the first time I saw her differently. We ate, swam, talked, and somewhere along the way a relationship began. 2 years later came my 18th birthday. That should have been the day I celebrated becoming an adult. Instead, adulthood arrived all at once. Tammy and I were caught together by her mother, and her parents kicked her out of their house. Sometime around midnight or 1 in the morning, my younger brother Wesley came to me and said Tammy was sitting outside in my car. I couldn't believe it. I had just turned 18 legally. I might have been an adult, but I certainly didn't feel like one. I was scared. I wasn't prepared to support another person or become responsible for someone else's future. But Tammy had nowhere to go. I went to my mother and told her what had happened. Mom listened. She could have been angry or lectured me about the choices we had made, but instead she was supportive. Most importantly, she wanted what was best for Tammy. The next morning, we called Tammy's parents and tried to patch things up. We hoped that after everyone had cooled down, they would allow her to come home. They refused. They made it clear that Tammy was on her own, and essentially told me that if I wanted to be with her, I should take care of her. I was 18 years old. One day, I was a teenager living at home. The next, someone was telling me another person's well-being was my responsibility. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I wasn't going to abandon her, so I accepted the responsibility. Tammy and I stayed together, and I did what I could to help her continue her education. She went to school and eventually became a cosmetologist. Looking back, I can see something about myself that I didn't completely understand then. Responsibility had become deeply ingrained in me. As a boy, I felt responsible for protecting my younger brother. At 12, I had stood up to a grown man because I believed someone had to. Now, at 18, another person needed help, and that same instinct inside me said, "You don't walk away." That instinct would become both a strength and, sometimes, a burden throughout my life. There is a difference between loving someone and believing you are responsible for saving them. It took me many years to understand that. At 18, I simply knew Tammy needed someone, and I was going to be there. Our relationship would eventually take turns neither of us could have imagined. There would be love, mistakes, betrayal, forgiveness, and decisions that would change the direction of my life. Eventually, that road would take us more than 1,000 miles away from Kansas to California. But that was still ahead. For now, I was 18 years old, standing at the beginning of adulthood with no idea where the road was going. Maybe that's how adulthood really begins. Not when you suddenly know what you're doing, but when life hands you a responsibility you don't feel ready to carry, and you pick it up anyway.
Chapter 6. Love, betrayal, and a second chance. After Tammy came into my life, we grew up together in many ways. I had taken responsibility for her when she was told she could no longer live at home. I helped her continue school, and eventually she became a cosmetologist. But taking responsibility for someone didn't mean I suddenly knew how to have a healthy relationship. We were young, and we both made mistakes. Before we ever went to California, there were times when both Tammy and I were unfaithful to each other. I could tell this story in a way that only focused on what she did to me, but that wouldn't be honest. This book isn't about keeping score or deciding who hurt whom the most. It's about scars. And sometimes we are responsible for scars of our own. I made choices I regret. Tammy made choices that hurt me. We broke trust, tried to rebuild it, and somehow kept moving forward. But one betrayal cut deeper than the others. Tammy became involved with my best friend, Tom. There are certain kinds of betrayal that hurt from two directions at once. This was one of them. The woman I loved and the man I considered my best friend had both betrayed my trust. I was angry. I was hurt. And I had every reason, at least in my own mind, to walk away. But something inside me kept pulling me back to the faith that had been with me since I was a little boy praying underneath the covers. So I prayed. I wasn't asking God to tell me that what happened was acceptable. It wasn't. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending something didn't hurt. It doesn't mean calling wrong right, and it doesn't automatically restore trust. For me, forgiveness meant to decide on what I was going to do with the pain. I had made mistakes too. Maybe they weren't exactly the same mistakes, and maybe there was no fair way to put them on a scale. But that wasn't the point. If I wanted forgiveness for the things I had done wrong, I had to be willing to understand what forgiveness meant when I was the one who had been hurt. So I chose to forgive Tammy. That didn't erase what happened. It didn't magically repair everything, but it gave us another chance. Looking back now, with many more years behind me, I can see how young we really were. We were trying to understand love while still trying to understand ourselves. I had confused responsibility with love at times.
I had confused forgiveness with an obligation to stay. And sometimes I believed that if I loved someone enough, worked hard enough, prayed hard enough, or forgave enough, I could somehow make everything turn out right. Life would eventually teach me that I couldn't control another person's choices. I could only control mine. Still, at that point in my life, I believed Tammy, and I could put the past behind us and start again. Then an opportunity came that seemed to offer exactly that: California. It was far from Kansas, far from our mistakes, and far from everything familiar. Maybe we thought distance could give us a clean slate. Maybe I thought forgiveness meant the worst was behind us. Either way, we packed more than our belongings when we headed west. We carried our history with us. Our love, our mistakes, our promises, our scars, and our hope that somewhere beneath the California sun, we could begin again. I didn't know then that changing where you live doesn't necessarily change what lives inside you. That lesson was waiting for me more than 1,000 miles away.
Chapter 7. California. A new beginning. After everything Tammy and I had been through, California felt like a chance to start over. We were already married when the opportunity came to move west. Tammy's family had connections there, and I was given the opportunity to manage a restaurant. Her mother eventually turned the operation over to me. And suddenly I found myself more than 1,000 miles from Kansas, trying to build a new life. California was different from anything I had known. Kansas was home. My family was there. My memories were there, the good ones and the painful ones. California felt like another world, and maybe that was exactly what I wanted. Tammy and I had hurt each other before we left Kansas. I had chosen to forgive what had happened between her and my best friend, Tom, just as I had to acknowledge my own failures in our relationship. I hoped we could leave those mistakes behind, but geography doesn't erase history. At first, though, I threw myself into our new life. I worked hard managing the restaurant. I had always been willing to work, and responsibility was something I had become accustomed to carrying from a very young age. Tammy's father was a chiropractor, and through him another possibility began opening in front of me. I started thinking seriously about becoming a chiropractor myself. That meant college. I began taking pre-med courses and spent time around my father-in-law's chiropractic office, learning more about the profession and considering whether it might become my future. For a while, I thought I had found my direction. But the more I learned, the more questions I had. I began noticing a difference between what I believed healthcare should be and some of what I was seeing around me. I wasn't comfortable with the emphasis I sometimes saw being placed on claims and business rather than disease, healing, and the patient. I don't say that as a judgment against an entire profession. There are good and caring chiropractors, just as there are good and bad people in every profession. I simply realized it wasn't the path for me. So once again, I found myself trying to figure out what came next. California was changing me in other ways too. I started working out seriously. When I began, I was about 5'6" and weighed around 130 pounds. I trained with weights at home and spent a tremendous amount of time swimming. I became almost obsessed with transforming myself. Over the months that followed, my body changed dramatically. Eventually, I had added nearly 88 pounds to my frame. For someone who had always been relatively small, seeing that transformation gave me confidence I hadn't experienced before. On the outside,
I was becoming stronger. But physical strength and emotional strength aren't always the same thing. There were still problems underneath the surface of my marriage. I wanted to believe we had been given a second chance. I wanted to believe that what happened in Kansas had stayed in Kansas. So I kept working. I kept studying. I kept training. And I kept trying to build the life I thought we were supposed to have. For a while, California really did feel like a new beginning. But sometimes what looks like a new beginning is only the space between two storms. I didn't know it yet, but another test of love, trust, forgiveness, and self-respect was coming. And this time, it would change the direction of my life.
Chapter 8. When trust broke again. California was supposed to be our fresh start. Tammy and I had already survived mistakes and unfaithfulness before leaving Kansas. I had forgiven her relationship with my best friend Tom, and I had acknowledged my own failures. I truly believed we could begin again. But sometimes forgiveness gives a relationship another chance without guaranteeing what the other person will do with it. While we were living in California, Tammy became involved with another man, the owner of a salvage yard in the San Bernardino area. When I discovered the affair, everything I thought we were rebuilding seemed to collapse. This wasn't Kansas anymore. This wasn't something from our past. We had traveled more than 1,000 miles to start over, and somehow the same pain had followed us. I was angry, humiliated, and deeply hurt. When everything came into the open, Tammy begged me not to leave her. I had a decision to make. Part of me wanted to walk away immediately. Another part remembered the promise I had made to myself years earlier, that when someone I loved needed me, I didn't simply abandon them. But there was something else going on. Tammy's self-esteem had suffered, and I didn't want another man's actions or her mistake with him to determine her value. I remember telling her something that reflected how I saw the situation at the time. You don't bow down to any man. The only one you bow before is the Lord. I wasn't saying what she had done was acceptable. It wasn't. I was trying to tell her that she still had value and that no man should become the measure of who she was. So I stayed. At least for the time being. Looking back, I can understand why someone might ask why. Why forgive again? Why stay after being betrayed again? The answer isn't simple. Part of it was my faith. Part of it was love. Part of it was the sense of responsibility I had carried since childhood. And part of it was probably my own inability to accept that sometimes a relationship cannot be repaired simply because one person desperately wants to repair it. I had spent much of my life trying to protect people. Wesley, my mother, Tammy. Somewhere along the way, I had begun believing that being strong meant carrying whatever was placed on my shoulders. But strength isn't always about holding on. Sometimes strength is knowing when you have done everything you can. I wasn't there yet. So I stayed and tried again. Meanwhile,
I continued working and training. The skinny Kansas kid who had once weighed around 130 pounds had transformed himself. I had added an extraordinary amount of muscle, and physically, I barely looked like the same person who had left home. Inside, however, I was still trying to understand who I was. Then life suddenly reminded me that there were things far bigger than my marriage problems. News came from Kansas. My mother had suffered a heart attack. She needed open heart surgery. Whatever problems existed in California suddenly became secondary. This was my mother. The woman who had stood beside me when I was 18 and frightened, who had opened her home and heart when Tammy had nowhere else to go, was now facing something that could take her life. I knew where I needed to be. Kansas. And I needed to get there before she went into surgery. I didn't know how much time I had. I only knew I was going home.
Chapter 9. The Long Road Home. When I learned that my mother had suffered a heart attack and needed open heart surgery, everything else stopped mattering. Whatever problems Tammy and I were having in California could wait. This was my mother. I loaded up my car in Highland, California, and headed for Wichita, Kansas. I had one goal: get there before she went into surgery. It was more than 1,000 miles, and I drove almost continuously. Mile after mile disappeared beneath me as I crossed the country, knowing there was a possibility I might not make it in time. During a drive like that, your mind has plenty of time to wander. I thought about Mom. I thought about everything we had been through together. This was the woman who had raised 6 children through circumstances that were often anything but easy. The woman who had supported me when Tammy was kicked out at 18. The woman who had been through marriages, struggles, violence, and hardships of her own, and somehow kept going. Now she was lying in a hospital waiting for someone to open her chest and operate on her heart. I prayed, and I drove. From Highland, California to Wichita, Kansas, the trip took me exactly 23 hours and 55 minutes. I made it, not with a day to spare, not with hours and hours to relax, but with enough time. I was able to sit with my mother for about an hour before they took her away for surgery. That hour meant more to me than I can explain. When someone you love is facing something that's serious, ordinary conversation suddenly isn't ordinary anymore. Every word matters. Every look matters. Every minute matters. I was simply grateful that I had made it home and had the opportunity to talk to her. Then they took her into surgery. All I could do was wait, pray, and trust God was something I couldn't control. Thankfully, Mom came through the surgery. I stayed in Kansas while she recovered and didn't return to California until she was released from the hospital. Once the immediate fear began to settle, something else happened during that visit that was far less serious but almost unbelievable. People didn't recognize me. When I had left Kansas, I was a small guy, about 5'6" and around 130 pounds. California had changed that dramatically. I had been training relentlessly with weights and swimming, and over time I had added nearly 88 pounds to my body. My hair was different too, and physically I looked nothing like the young man everyone remembered. So when I started visiting family and people who had known me before I left, I got reactions I never expected. Some would look at me without realizing who they were looking at. Then came the double takes, the staring, and finally, David.
I couldn't help but enjoy it. After everything happening in my life, those moments provided a little laughter. But there was something deeper happening inside me. I had left Kansas trying to build a new life. Now I had returned looking like a completely different man. Yet sitting beside my mother's hospital bed reminded me that underneath all that muscle, I was still her son. I was still the boy who had prayed under the covers. Still the brother who believed family was something you protected. Still trying to understand love, forgiveness, responsibility, and faith. Eventually, Mom was well enough to leave the hospital. Only then did I feel comfortable returning to California. So I made the long trip west again. But California didn't feel quite the same anymore. Something had shifted. Maybe seeing my mother come so close to death reminded me how short life really was. Maybe coming home reminded me where I belonged. Or maybe the problems I'd left waiting for me in California could no longer be ignored. Whatever it was, the road was beginning to turn again. And before long, that road would lead me home to Kansas for good.
Chapter 10. Coming home for good. After my mother recovered enough to leave the hospital, I returned to California. But I wasn't the same man who had left. Seeing Mom face open-heart surgery had reminded me how quickly life could change. It made me think about family, about home, and about what really mattered. And waiting for me in California was a marriage that had been wounded more times than either of us wanted to admit. I had tried to forgive. I had tried to rebuild trust. I had stayed when leaving might have been easier. But eventually I had to face something I had resisted for a long time. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean a relationship has to continue. Tammy and I had grown up together. We had been together since I was 18. When her parents told her she was on her own, I had taken responsibility for helping her. We had experienced good years and bad ones, mistakes on both sides, betrayal, forgiveness, and attempts to start over. California had been one of those attempts. It hadn't worked. Eventually, our marriage came to an end. Divorce felt like failure to me. My faith taught me to value marriage, commitment, and forgiveness. I had always believed that if something was broken, you worked on it. But two people have to want to rebuild. One person cannot carry an entire marriage. Accepting that was difficult. Around this time, my younger brother Wesley had come to California. He had come out to visit and work, and having him there became important when it was finally time for me to leave. Wesley and I had been side by side since childhood. We had shared a bed as little boys while I prayed under the covers. We had faced our stepfather together. Now, years later, and more than 1,000 miles from Kansas, my little brother was beside me again. I decided to go home. I didn't take much with me. Most of what I had accumulated in California stayed behind. Possessions didn't seem very important anymore. I had my truck. I had what I could take with me. And I had Wesley to help me make the drive back. So we headed east. There's something strange about driving away from a life you once thought would be your future. Every mile put more distance between me and California. But every mile also brought me closer to Kansas. Closer to my mother. Closer to my family. Closer to home. I had left Kansas believing California might give Tammy and me a fresh beginning.
Now I was returning divorced and uncertain about what came next. From the outside, it might have looked like I was starting over with almost nothing. But I didn't see it that way. I was alive. My mother was alive. My family was waiting for me. And I still had my faith. Sometimes starting over isn't about what you carry with you. It's about what you're finally willing to leave behind.
When I returned to Kansas, I stayed with my mother. Our family worked on Mom's house, a new staircase, basement repair, painting, remodeling. We knew how to build things. What I didn't know was what God was building in my life. I began praying specifically about the woman I hoped I would someday meet. I asked God for a woman of faith. I prayed that she would somehow be placed right in front of me. I also prayed about some things that may sound superficial until I explain why they mattered to me. I'm only 5'6". Throughout my life, people noticed my height, commented on it, or identified me by it. I had learned to live with that. But I hoped that if I ever had sons, they might not have to deal with the same questions. So I prayed that the woman who came into my life would be taller than me. I prayed that we would love each other deeply and that she would take care of herself physically. And most importantly, that she would be a woman with genuine faith. Then Susie moved in, directly across the street. I prayed. I had asked for someone to be placed right in front of me. And there she was. Susie had a son named Lee who was about 7. As Susie and I became closer, I wanted her to understand something about me. I didn't have much. I didn't have wealth or impressive possessions. I told her that what I could offer was myself, and that I would try to be the best man I knew how to be. She looked at me and said, "I want you for who you are." She wasn't looking for money. She wasn't looking for things. She wanted me for me. That statement meant something. After everything we would eventually live through together, it means even more now. Lee began calling me Dad. Susie and I married, and the woman I had prayed for became my wife. Years later, our 2 biological sons would both grow to nearly 6 feet tall, and Lee was 6 feet 2. They will never have to live with the same questions about height that followed me. Some people would call all of that coincidence. I understand. I've lived long enough to know that faith doesn't require everyone else to see what you see or believe. I only know what I prayed, and the prayer was answered. And I know who moved in across the street. Chapter 11. Building a family. Marriage brought a different kind of responsibility. Susie already had Lee, and I never saw him as something separate from the family we were building. He was my son. Eventually, we learned that Lee was autistic. Parenting any child requires patience. Parenting a child whose mind processes the world differently teaches you to rethink what patience actually means. Meanwhile, I went to work building a future. I obtained my contractor's license. For a time, I worked with my brothers Wesley and Randall, who helped me study for a general contractor's license at the same time as he did. We remodeled homes, built things, repaired things, and tried to make a living with our hands. Randall eventually moved into another season of his own life. Wesley and I continued.
Then Susie became pregnant. That changed the calculation. Self-employment can provide freedom, but freedom doesn't always come with medical insurance. I began thinking less like a man responsible only for himself, and more like a husband and father responsible for everyone under his roof. Our son Joseph was born on March of 1994. We would later find he faced disabilities of his own. He was our baby, and my world had expanded again. In July 1995, I went to work at Cessna. It wasn't simply a career decision. It was a family decision. I wanted insurance for the family. I wanted stability. I wanted to know that if my wife or children needed medical care, I had done what I could to provide it. There are sacrifices nobody applauds. Getting up and going to work, working when you are tired and working overtime. Taking the job with benefits instead of the job you enjoy more. Changing plans because people depend on you. I began understanding that being a husband and father was less about what I said and more about what I did. I was still learning. I am still learning. But the family Susie and I had built was the center of my life. And soon that family would experience one of the deepest losses we had faced together.
Chapter 12. The Child We Never Held. In January 1996, while I was working at Cessna, Susie was about 6 months pregnant. We lost the baby. Some experiences are difficult to write about because language makes them seem too small. Miscarriage is a medical word. It doesn't describe hopes. It doesn't describe imagining a child's face. It doesn't describe thinking about where that child will sleep or what kind of person he or she might become. It doesn't describe suddenly realizing those moments aren't coming. We grieve differently, as husbands and wives often do. Grief is personal, even when the loss belongs to both people. I don't pretend that faith made the pain disappear. Many times in my life when prayer brought peace. There have been other times when prayer was the thing I knew to do while hurting. This was one of those times. We kept going. Not because the loss didn't matter, because life moves on and doesn't ask permission before continuing. A few months later, another opportunity appeared. In July 1996, I went to Boeing. Ironically, I hadn't gone there for myself. I was taking Wesley for an interview opportunity, and while I was there, I ended up interviewing too. I accepted the job. The Lord has a strange way of opening doors you weren't standing in front of. Susie became pregnant again. This pregnancy brought complications and concern. Boeing was understanding, and they helped us. They reassigned me third shift and used FMLA when necessary, so I could be present to help when needed. By then, I understood that jobs matter, but jobs aren't people. In January 1997, our youngest son, Jameson, was born healthy. After losing a child, holding a healthy baby can bring joy and fear at the same time. You are grateful, and suddenly, you understand exactly how much there is to lose. Joseph and Jamison eventually grew into the boys I had once prayed about without knowing their names. Both nearly 6 feet.
Sometimes answered prayers arrive so gradually that you don't recognize them until years later. You look around one day and realize you are standing inside something you once prayed for.
Chapter 13. Songs in the Garage. Music never really left me. Through construction, aircraft work, marriage, children, and everything else, songs remained part of who I was. At one point, I built a studio in the garage. It wasn't Abbey Road, but to me, it was something special. We had Shure microphones, a 24-channel digital mixer, a Roland synthesizer, guitars, basses, and enough equipment to create. My best friend Tim and I worked on a Christian album. Faith and music came together naturally for me because both had been present since childhood. Susie wasn't someone who constantly wanted to be behind a microphone, but she sang with me once on a song called Carrying Me. That recording became special because it captured something we didn't often do together. Music can preserve a moment. A voice remains the age it was when it was recorded. A guitar part doesn't get older. A harmony waits exactly where you left it. I spent years writing songs about life, humor, frustration, faith, love, and whatever else got into my head. I never became a famous songwriter. That wasn't the point. Creation itself mattered. If something lived inside me and became a song, it had found a way out. Around that same period, our family experienced another loss. In October 1997, my father died after complications following a hip fracture caused by a fall. The man who had once played guitar and danced with us was gone. Death rearranges memory. Suddenly, the ordinary moments become precious. The couch, the guitar, his voice, the basement, a dance. These are the things we spend our lives thinking will always be available until one day they aren't. I still have one of Dad's guitars. I can't hear his hands on it anymore. But when I hold it, part of the story is still there. Chapter 14. Work, pride, and principle. Aircraft work became a large part of my adult life. Cessna led to Boeing. Boeing eventually became part of Spirit AeroSystems when the Wichita commercial aircraft operations were sold. I stayed through the transition. At first, I intended to give the new company a fair chance. But there was something that bothered me deeply. My oldest brother, Quinn Jr., had experience and ability, yet Spirit didn't hire him. He had even traveled to Germany as part of work involving machine builders. At one point, some of the German workers came to Kansas, and Quinn Jr. invited them to our mother's home for Thanksgiving as a gracious host that worked for Boeing. That memory still makes me smile. People from another country, sitting around Mom's table, becoming part of a family holiday in Kansas. Eventually, I left Spirit after roughly 100 days and went to Raytheon, which later became Hawker Beechcraft almost 5 years later. I was laid off due to economic downturn,
and I never returned. 2 years into my employment at Beechcraft, something else come up. Leaving Spirit created another problem. There was money I knew I was owed. The company initially denied the payout. A representative of Spirit named Mr. Black was connected to the dispute. He said, "You will have to prove it, cowboy." I didn't let it go. For roughly 2 years, I fought the issue through the proper channels, including the labor board, and I prayed. I produced the proof. And eventually I was justly compensated. I proved it. Sometimes frustration becomes paperwork. Sometimes it becomes prayer. Sometimes it becomes a song. I had difficulty walking away when I believed there was injustice. Age has taught me that being right about an issue doesn't automatically make every reaction to it right. There is a difference between persistence and patience, principle and pride. I haven't always known where that line was. But through the years, and with prayer, I learned work became more than a paycheck. It became part of the way I provided for the people I loved. And increasingly, my family needed me in ways that had nothing to do with money.
Chapter 15. Dad. Children grow up whether parents are ready or not. Lee grew older. Joseph grew older. Jemison grew older. Our family didn't fit anyone's definition of simple. Lee was autistic. Joseph was disabled. Jemison did not have those disabilities and eventually entered aircraft work himself. There was something deeply satisfying about knowing one of my sons would work in the same kind of industry where I had spent so much of my own life. But at the same time, I didn't want him to experience the same body pains that an aircraft mechanic feels later in life. Years earlier, when Lee was about 7, he had begun calling me Dad. That one word carried a responsibility I took seriously. Biology matters. But fatherhood is also built out of presence, meals, appointments, arguments, forgiveness, showing up, waiting, driving, working, being there. Being there when you don't know what to say. Being there after you make mistakes. Our home eventually expanded again when Brandy entered Lee's life. She moved in with us when she was about 18. Within roughly a year, she lost her mother to a sudden illness. She became part of our family not because everything in her life had gone smoothly, but because sometimes families are formed around people who need one another. Eventually, Lee and Brandy married. They had a son, Eli. Jemison married Jess. They had a son, Adrian. I became a grandfather. If being a parent changes the way you understand your own parents, being a grandparent changes the way you understand time. Suddenly, you see generations standing in the same room. You see your father's face in someone else's expression. You hear yourself saying things your mother or father once said. You realize life is moving faster than it felt when you were young. I wasn't trying to become the hero of my family. I was trying to remain present. There is a difference. There is a difference. Chapter 16. Friday nights. From around 2010 through 2017, football became one of the rhythms of our family life. Jemison played. I didn't miss his practices. I didn't miss his games. Susie was there too. Some parents measure commitment in dramatic sacrifices. Sometimes commitment looks like sitting on bleachers, driving to practice, standing in weather that makes sensible people stay home, watching the same drills again and again, knowing the names of coaches and teammates, waiting in parking lots. I wanted my son to look into the stands and know we were there. Sports had been part of my own childhood from the days when my brothers and I played in the yard, and I became a Chiefs fan at 4 years old. Now I was seeing sports through the eyes of a father. The score mattered, but the score wasn't everything. You learn a lot about a child watching him lose. You learn something watching him win. You learn something watching him get knocked down and line up again. Years later, I don't remember every score. I remember being there. That is one of the truths I would tell younger parents if they asked me for advice. Your children may forget many of the things you buy them. They don't forget whether you showed up. Not perfectly. No parent does anything perfectly, but consistently. Presence becomes its own language. And eventually, when children become adults, the relationship changes again. Maybe they begin showing up for you. I would learn just how true that was on the worst night our family had experienced in years. Chapter 17. Caring for family. As the years passed, Susie and I found ourselves caring for family members whose needs didn't disappear simply because they became adults. Lee still dealing with his disabilities, and Joseph with his own, and still with us. Parenthood doesn't automatically end at 18. Not in every family. Not in our family. There are parents who reach a point when their children become completely independent. There are others whose children will always need some assistance. Love and prayer carry us through. Neither life is more loving than the other. They're simply different. Susie and I adapt. By then, I was dealing with my own physical limitations too. Years of construction, aircraft work, lifting, standing, and life itself had taken a toll. My body no longer behaved like the body that once transformed itself in a California weight room. That can be humbling. A man can spend his youth believing strength means how much he can lift. Age teaches another definition. Strength becomes getting up when you hurt, helping somebody when you are tired, accepting assistance when pride tells you not to, continuing to love people when caregiving becomes repetitive and exhausting. Our family had known loss too. My brothers Wesley and Dean both passed. Every death removes someone who remembers a version of you that nobody else quite knows. Wesley had been beside me under those childhood covers. He had stood beside me when we confronted our stepfather. He had gone to California. He had worked beside me. Dean had been my fishing buddy. Now those memories live largely in me. Grief accumulates, but so does gratitude. One of the strange gifts of getting older is realizing that ordinary days were never ordinary. They were life. And while I was learning that lesson, another chapter was approaching that none of us could have imagined. Chapter 18. September 8, 2025. There are dates that divide your life into before and after. That became one of ours. Our house burned. A home is wood, drywall, wiring, roofing, pipes, furniture. But that isn't what you lose when a house burns. You lose the place where Christmas mornings happened. The wall somebody leaned against during reflection. The room where a child slept. The drawer where photographs were kept. The corner where a guitar stood. Things accumulated not because they were expensive, but because they belonged to moments. 10 people were displaced. The fire didn't ask whether we were ready. Our insurance had been canceled because of the age and type of the home. That meant the loss wasn't followed by the simple process people imagine. Call the insurance company. Rebuild. Move home. There was no easy reset button. We lost memorabilia too. Over the years, I had collected autographed footballs and cards from players I admired. Priest Holmes, Jamal Charles, Tamba Hali, Joe Montana, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Sammy Watkins, and others. They were things. I know that. But things hold memories. The fire didn't distinguish between expensive and sentimental. It simply burned everything. When something like that happens, people sometimes say, at least everyone survived. And that is true. It matters more than everything else. But gratitude that nobody died does not mean you aren't allowed to grieve what was lost. Both things can be true. We were alive, and we were devastated. Still, we prayed.
Chapter 19. What the fire couldn't take. After the fire, something happened that I will never forget. Jemison and Jess had been living with us while their own house was being completed. Their new home was about 20 miles away. After ours burned, they gave us their house to live in. They moved into an apartment. Think about that for a moment. A young couple finally has a house of their own. Then their parents and family lose everything. And they say, essentially, take ours. There are moments when you realize that whatever mistakes you made as a parent, something good took root. Jemison and Jess didn't solve every problem. They gave us something far more important. Shelter. Dignity. Time. Love expressed through sacrifice. The same family I had spent much of my life trying to protect was now protecting us. Lee and Brandy were part of the family rebuilding around us. The children, the grandchildren, the people who had once depended on us were becoming the people we depended on. My sister and her husband Lloyd came to help. My brother Randall came to help. Even though they are in their late 60s and early 70s dealing with their health issues, they came to help. They helped us move to the house Jemison and Jess provided for us. That is the circle of family when it works the way it should. Not one person always strong. Not one person always giving. We carry each other at different times. The Lord carries all of us. Faith did not stop the fire. Prayer has not made the house reappear. God did not drop a new home out of the sky. We still pray and hope. When I look around, I see people, and the answer to a prayer has a face. Chapter 20. 4 acres. We still own the property where the house burned. About 4 acres. The garage remains standing. Utilities need repair. The land sits there holding both memory and possibility. Rebuilding won't be inexpensive. The estimate could easily approach $100,000. Living on a fixed income makes numbers like that difficult to imagine. But I haven't given up on the property. My hope is to restore it. Not simply for myself. I'd like eventually to give it to Jamison and Jess. After what they did for us, there would be something deeply satisfying about giving something back. I don't know exactly how that will happen. I've tried ideas, music, YouTube, different ways of raising money. Some have worked a little. Some haven't worked at all. In my younger days, I would have been physically able. Today is different. There comes a point where faith has to exist alongside reality. Faith is not pretending $100,000 is $10. Faith is looking honestly at the problem and continuing to believe there is still a path you cannot yet see. I have spent a lifetime building and repairing things, houses, aircraft, relationships, my own mistakes. Some things were easier to repair than others. There are scars everywhere if you look, on people, on families, on land. A scar means something happened. It doesn't necessarily mean the story ends there. We still pray, and we still hope. Chapter 21. Love and Scars. When I look backward now, I don't see a straight line. I see a little boy praying under the covers. I see my parents separating. I see brothers going one direction and the rest of us another. I see an abusive stepfather, a 12-year-old deciding he had finally had enough. I see teenage love, marriage, betrayal, California, muscles, pride, failure, forgiveness. A 23-hour and 55-minute drive because my mother needed open heart surgery, and I had to reach her before she went in. I see myself returning to Kansas with little more than my truck and the desire to start again. Then I see a house across the street, Susie, the woman of faith I had prayed for. I remember telling her that I didn't have much, no great fortune, no impressive collection of possessions. I could offer her myself and try to be the best man I knew how to be. She wanted me anyway. Maybe that was more prophetic than either of us understood. Because decades later, many of the things we accumulated were gone in a fire. And she was still there. I see Lee calling me Dad. Brandy calling me Dad. Joseph being born and his loving heart and innocence, the child we lost. Jamison arriving healthy, and his football games and practices, aircraft factories, songs recorded in a garage, songs I still write. My father's guitar, my brothers, my sister, children becoming adults, grandchildren, disability, caregiving, loss, fire, and love. A lot of love. I have scars. So do the people I love. Some scars were caused by people. Some were caused by things I did. That distinction matters. A testimony isn't supposed to be a story about how good the person telling it has always been.
At least mine isn't. My story is about a God I keep turning toward even when I don't understand what he was doing. I turn toward him faithfully, sometimes confused, sometimes after I had already made a mess of things. But I kept coming back. I still pray.
Chapter 22. Still hoping. Our story doesn't end with everything restored. Not yet. The house has not magically rebuilt itself. The financial questions haven't disappeared. There are people in our family who still need care. There are physical limitations I would gladly trade for the strength I had when I was younger. There are people I miss. There are things I wish I could change. There are conversations I would have differently if I could have them again. There are decisions I would reconsider. Age does that. It gives you clarity after the deadline. But age also gives you something else. Perspective. I once thought winning meant proving I was right. Sometimes it means forgiving. I once thought strength meant being physically powerful. Sometimes strength means admitting you need help. I once thought providing meant earning money. Sometimes providing means listening. Sometimes it means sitting beside someone. Sometimes it means staying. Sometimes faith means receiving an answer. Sometimes it means continuing without one. Today, we are still hoping to rebuild, still looking for a path, still helping the people we love, still trying, still praying. I don't know exactly what the next chapter will contain. When I look backward, I see many times when I didn't know what came next. And somehow, there is another chapter. The Lord is listening. Chapter 23. Still praying. When I was about 5 years old, I would lie beside Wesley and pull the covers over my head. I thought I was alone with God. I whispered prayers for my family. Then I began praying for everyone in the world. I didn't know what was waiting for me. I didn't know my parents would separate. I didn't know about abuse. I didn't know about betrayal. I didn't know there would be marriages, divorces, children, miscarriages, factories, funerals, disabilities, grandchildren, fires, or 4 acres of burned memories waiting more than half a century ahead. Maybe that's mercy. We aren't shown our entire lives at once. We receive them one day at a time. I am older now. I've done some things I'm proud of.
I've done others I wish I could take back. I've forgiven people. I've needed forgiveness. I've loved well at times. I've failed at it at others. I've learned that people are complicated. Families are complicated. Faith is complicated. But love is worth the scars. I don't believe God promised me a painless life. I don't believe being a Christian protected me from bad decisions, tragedy, or disappointment. What I do believe is that I was never abandoned in them. Sometimes His presence came through prayer. Sometimes through Susie. Sometimes through my children. Sometimes through a brother or my sister. Sometimes through a stranger. Sometimes through a door opening when I thought every door was closed. And sometimes there was silence. Faith had to survive that too. The boy beneath those covers wanted God to take care of everyone. The older man writing these words knows the world doesn't always look right. But somewhere inside me, that little boy is still there. Still hoping. Still believing. Still asking God to take care of the people. So after all these years, all these mistakes, all this love, and all these scars, there is one thing I can tell you for certain. In case you're wondering, I still pray today.